The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Safeway Open DraftKings picks and preview. It's been a long off season, so it's nice to get back to finally talking some golf. A huge 10 days. It's been tough. But this is a great time of year for anyone who loves playing DraftKings golf, because frankly, the people that are playing, you get your mix between complete casuals who just have money on and are playing football and know nothing about this, and then you get super sharp guys. But the best part is there's so many new players in the player pool now. Like, we're back up to full field events, so it's not just taking the best guys in the world like we've seen for basically, I mean, through the FedEx Cup playoffs and even ending at like Bridgestone, PGA Championship. The Wyndham is the last real event that we got like this, and now this field is completely scrubbier than the Wyndham, although Phil is at the top, Cantley's here, so it's not a complete disaster, but the swing season is a great time to really put your knowledge to good use. It's probably the softest time of the year in terms of cash lines and 50-50s to end up at the top of GPPs. So we're back. We're going to be covering all the events, so welcome back to golf season. Remember to go to fantasynational.com, become a member. $2.3 million members won from March through September on DraftKings alone for Fantasy National members. We're hoping to beat that number this year. Probably going to take another Millionaire Maker winner, but hey, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we can pile up some early cash here in the swing season. Joining me to break it all down, one of the large contributors to that $2.3 million prize pool, a man who had a very successful season in 2017, hoping to keep it rolling in the, or 2018, trying to keep it rolling in the 2019 season. It's Brandon Guptill of GupsCorner.com. The Gup, what's going on?
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Oh, listen, it's an early morning. We're talking golf. It's back. I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, I'm fired up for some 9,700 Denny McCarthy week. It's going to be interesting.
Is that a mispricing? Like, what's going on? Like, that, even like on the odds board, like Denny McCarthy is someone that's just like, what?
I thought it was a huge mispricing, and then when the odds came out, when I got home last night to prep for our show, I was like, well, Vegas kind of has him right there as well. So I guess I'm missing something. I got to do some research there, but very interesting pricing and betting odds for him.
Yeah, I can just say that in terms of strokes gained total over the past 50 rounds, he does rank 11th in this field. So I thought that really surprised me when I saw it. So maybe Denny McCarthy is with the names around him, you probably don't need to take him. We'll get into that in a second. I do want to let everyone know that if they give the episode a like, smash that like button, leave your DK handle in the comment section, and give me your two favorite plays from above $8,500. If you were going to start a lineup with two expensive guys, which two would it be? So let me know on that, and boom, you're in a draw for 20 DK dollars. I'll announce the winner on next week's show. Let's get into the course. Safeway Open, we got Silverado North, or Silverado Resort North. Brendan Steele's won back-to-back years. Gup, what are you looking at for key stats here? Because it just seems like you need to gouge these par fives.
Yeah, you do. It's kind of interesting this week because you're going to have to take 30% of the field is just very, very little rounds in any kind of matrix that you look at. And obviously I use fantasynational.com as well. You can find a direct link to where Pat was talking about on our website as well to get straight to it if you want to sign up. But it's hard because you're going to have to take some guys that just you go off of what you read on how they did on the web.com and the graduates. And some will be familiar, Sung J.M., Sam Burns, who, obviously went head-to-head with Tiger on Sunday. I was there at the Honda. So some of those guys have a little bit of history, but the ones that don't, it's a crapshoot. I really think in the research I did yesterday that the proximity is going to be huge. So I'm looking at stroke gain approach, ball striking. I want guys that'll put it in the fairway as well. So I'm looking at some accuracy. I just think probably a 14 to 17 under wins it. So the guys that have the closer, easier putts, very undulated greens, POA mix. Some of you guys may not be very familiar with POA if they're centralized and they're kind of fresh to the tour. DK points is always, is kind of important. And I kind of looked at par 4, 400 to 450 as well. Most of the par 4s are in that range. So I kind of blended all that together to kind of see what we could come up with this week. Obviously, the familiar guys are going to rise to the top, but I do have a couple surprises that I thought would be rated higher in my rankings that aren't.
Well, when we go back and look at the Web.com results, Denny McCarthy did win the final Web.com event. Sang Moon Bay, a former winner at this course, actually won the tournament previous to that on the Web.com tour. And we're seeing a lot of the new graduates coming in. Do you have a feel for any of these guys that you actually really do like? Because the one thing I'll kind of throw on top, the key stats that I'm really leaning on, ball striking and approach. I know that approach is a part of ball striking, but I really wanted to emphasize approach as well. Par 5 scoring and just strokes gained birdie or better. Just guys are constantly making birdies. I'm with you on there are 6 par 4s in that key range, 400 to 450 yards. There's also another 3 that are less than 400 yards as well. That really leads me to one guy in particular that I like who just kind of dominates that length of holes over and over and over. I always like him at these shorter courses where you can still exploit some of the par 5s, but we'll get to him in a second. Are there any web guys though that like just immediately stick out to you as, hey, these guys are players, we need to be using them until people catch on?
I mean, definitely Sungjae Im. I'm sure he's going to get kind of the hype train. Interested to see where he comes in on Fanshare Sports. Now, the new guys, new to the game, and you know, hopefully, you know, hey, if you want to try out golf this week, please try it out because it helps us grow it. If DraftKings fills the contest, but I mean, he comes out in my rankings at 107th because he has you know 0 rounds on my statistics. But I'll play him if you know because he's $7,000. You're going to have to take some stabs. I like Sam Burns. I watched him live, and I thought he was just going to, you know, that was kind of Tiger's first real comeback type tournament where he's contending on the weekend. And Burns played toe to toe with him and actually did okay throughout the year. Missed a couple cuts coming in at the end, but I'll watch him. I don't mind playing him. And kind of the guy that I think may get a little bit of the hype train. I know our guys are definitely on him is Cameron Champ. The dude can just bomb it. I mean, I think he averaged 345 on the web, led the web by 10 yards. You know, don't have any stats on him as far as approach, but if he, you know, it's probably a lot easier to hit a flip wedge in than an 8-iron, 7-iron, 6-iron. So maybe he's worth a try because he may have shorter clubs into the green.
So in terms of Cameron Champ and his 3 starts on the PGA Tour last season, Canadian Open, Valero, and Genesis. He also played 3 of the swing season events, and only 2 of them actually had stats. He's yet to gain strokes on approach in any of the 5 qualified tournaments he's played. That's tough. Yeah,
that is. Yeah, and so it's like I'm with you this week, heavy on approach and ball striking. And I agree, ball striking has that mix in, but I want those guys. So he'd be a flyer, but if he's going to be, I mean, the one thing I'd probably weigh against is going chalky web guys this week. I mean, that really doesn't, it's hard enough to jump into the web guys, but if you're going to have a chalky one, I'll probably pass and just go to either the guys I know or take like an Ortiz coming out that may not be as high up, or a Munoz. Sebastian Munoz is, you know, a solid player, and if you want to take a step there, you could do that instead of going Sungjae or Cameron, who may be high owned just because they have exposure and then get a little bit of the hype train.
Well, let's move to the very top of the board. The guys we know and that we're going to play probably this week. So the above $10,000 level on DraftKings this week. It all starts with one man. His name is Patrick Cantlay. He's $11,600. The only other plus 11,000 player is Brandt Snedeker, and the rest of the plus 10 crowd is Phil Mickelson, Ryan Moore, Joaquin Niemann, and Emiliano Grillo. Grillo won this event 2 years ago. Like I mentioned, Brendan Steele has won back-to-back years. Bay won at Silverado the year before that. So it's only been 4 years contested at this course. But I just look at this. I see Joaquin Niemann at 10-3 and be like, can you talk me out of not having him in 100% of my lineups?
No, I won't be on that train to be able to talk you out. I'm fading the top 3 guys 100%. I want no part of any of them. And I like the next 3 guys. I'll have a good mixture of Moore and Grillo, and Niemann will be my highest own. I know he's going to be chalky, but I've loved him ever since I was at the Masters and watched him for the first time. I didn't really know who he was then, but we caught him on Wednesday, and by the end of it, I was like, who is this kid? I mean, he just continued to have an excellent year. He's been in the situations. I mean, this is a prime tournament, and really shocked that he's 28-1. He'll be one of my plays on the betting side as well. So I'm all over Niemann with you.
Yeah, I'm huge on Neiman this week. You mentioned earlier you want some guys that hit a lot of fairways. This is actually one of the courses on tour that has the fewest fairways hit. It's a lot like the Sony Open in that sense, though, is that guys can miss the fairway, yet still have an extremely high greens in regulation. You mentioned proximity. Obviously, that's going to be much easier from the short grass, but I don't think it disqualifies anyone missing the fairways as well. And so Neiman can just kind of go bomb and gouge. John Rahm should have played this. He would have won.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think fairway, like you just said, it's easier to get close out of the fairway more times than not than the rough. So some of those guys will get you in a little bit that are definitely high up there in my model. You know, the Adam Hadwins, Ches Reeves, guys like that can take advantage from the fairway to be in play.
Do you worry a little bit about Ryan Moore that he was such a disaster through the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I'm honestly not doing a lot of recent form this week. I just think those last 3 weeks are different grind and criteria. And if they're on the bubble, they're taking shots they may not need necessarily in a normal tournament because they got to get under the 70 or the 30. And so, I have some recent form in there because a lot of these guys did play, but I'd have 100%, theoretical weighting. I only have 15 on recent form. So I'm not putting a ton in there. I mean, he finished 6th at the Wyndham, which was the last full field, and he pretty much knew he was going to get into the Northern Trust. So I kind of look at that more than I would a T71 at the Dell.
Well, the one thing that he was able to do, and if we go back to approach, he's been gaining through approach through those. He just could not putt. But now you get him back on POA. In 2 starts at this tournament in his career, he's finished 10th. He's finished 17th. So, yeah, I think maybe Neiman, maybe I split that up a little bit more. Maybe I package them together. Do you prefer Moore over Griot or Griot over Moore?
Griot. I'm big on Griot as well. Griot and Neiman will be my top place here. 1 and 2 years ago, like you said, I like it that this is his 4th year playing it. So he's used to refiring up at this time of the year, and he's finished, first T26, T28, got all the way to the BMW. Didn't do as well there with the T61, but he finished 7th at the Dell. He's one of the tops in my 3 highest categories of approach, ball striking, and driving blend, 3rd, 1st, and 4th. So he marks every box there is for me. So I love Griot as well, and he'll be one of my bets. I think this week I'll probably go like Neiman Griot on betting, and then drop to some bombs and just kind of have fun with it. There's no reason to get crazy at the Safeway Open, but want to have a little action.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just like Neiman, and then I'll just drop down to my main man, Luke List, because that's what I do every single week. And this is actually a course which does, on paper, really set up for him. My good friend, Mr. Tim Andercust, also picked Luke List, but I'm hoping that his curse of Luke List is exactly what Luke List needs to really flip his fortunes around and actually break through into the winner's circle. Some guys play better when cursed. Jason Day, prime example. Whenever he's super cursed, it really works out for him. Other times, not so hot. Maybe Luke List can fall into that as well. But when I continue to look up there, yeah, so those are the guys. Like, Phil is really interesting because no one's going to take Phil, but he kind of dominates this tournament.
Yeah, we talked about it last night on our pod. Is at what ownership do you go ahead and take a bite? And I said, hey, I don't build a lot of lineups. I'm typically, 5 to 8 at most on any given week. I play in a little bit of the higher, low, or even like a 153 max or something. But if I'm building, to talk to the masses, if I'm building 20 lineups and he's sitting there at 4 or 5%, I'm going to throw him in 2 just to have that leverage on the field. And like you said, he's T8, T3. I know we don't want to get into the course history battle that is the Twitter world, but then you look at recent form and he's just hot garbage. So it's hard to go, does he care this week? I really don't even know why he plays it, but this is his 3rd straight year to play it. So there's obviously a tie there. But if he's going to come in at less than 5% and I'm building 10 or more lineups, I'm certainly going to have him at least 1 or 2 to have a little leverage on the field.
All right, so $9,000 range, it kicks off with Denny McCarthy at $9,700. Adam Hadwin, Abraham Ancer, who had some flashes through the FedEx Cup playoffs, Hostler, and 2-time defending champ Brendan Steele. I don't know if I like any of these guys. Hadwin, I probably like Ancer the most out of all of them, to tell you the truth, just because the way that the ball striking has been out of control for him. And he seems like one of those guys, we kind of see it every season where there's guys that get really close during the season and then they eventually get their win on the swing season. Ancer, to me, kind of lines up to be one of those guys. So the next 6 weeks, he's someone to really have on the radar.
Right. So he rates out decent in my model. And this is one thing as I release my rankings this morning, I'll try to preach to especially the new guys is like he's 84th in course history because he's, he had miscut, T37 and not great, but that's a different guy than what he's built upon on the year. So I don't factor that as much for him personally. Our rankings are all data driven algorithms, so they just come out. But I'll take a look at a guy like that who I was on many times throughout the season and go, okay, yeah, like you said, he can compete here. My model actually spit out Adam Hadwin as my number one player stat wise. He's number 4 overall. And I'm not a Hadwin player at all. I can't stand playing him. So I don't know if if I go ahead and bite the bullet just because of what it says. But when looking at it, he finished strong at the end of the year, T11, T21, T19. So probably has a little bit of form coming in. And definitely can hit fairways. We know that. Can put the ball close. If he's putting it close and he putts well, he can definitely compete here. I don't know if the 9,000 range is my range this week. I wouldn't even mind going Neiman Griot and try to build low. But even if not, I'd like to take 2 in the 8 or 7. Some of these guys that are just as good in my mind and can compete, and it gives me some room to not have to drop so low at the bottom of the board. So I'm agreeing with you on that. Still, I assume will be chalky. He's undervalued for what his performance is here. And so I think people will lean to him. So I'll take a hard pass on that. McCarthy could be like Phil. I'm sure everybody in the world goes, why is McCarthy 97? And then you look at Vegas odds, and he's right there where he should be as far as a correlation. And I can't figure it out. I'm going to have a hard pass on him and drop to the 8s. So I kind of agree with you there.
So is there any merit to put into Denny McCarthy being like, listen, like no one is going to take this guy? He is coming off a win. Obviously, Vegas likes him based on his odds. He's doing something right. Like I had mentioned off the top that he's 11th in strokes gained total over the past 50 rounds. And that's just PGA Tour events. That's not including the web where he's played a lot better. Is it worth, let's say if I played 10 lineups, is it worth throwing him in 2 if he's going to be 1%?
Yeah, I would say absolutely, because I think Sung J M, who would be his counterpart on the web, M1, led almost every category. He just dominated that tour last year, and he's 7,000. So, last night I put a mark on it to go digging. He'll be a guy between now and tomorrow night's chat that I look into to figure out what am I missing? Is there a potential? And like you said, I can't imagine them being higher than 3 or 4%. So you take them in 1 out of 10, you got 10% leverage and move on. I certainly wouldn't hate that by any means.
Sung J M actually skipped the Web.com Tour Championship because he had just
Right.
played well enough that he was going to get his card anyway. But he had his win at the Winco Foods Portland Open presented by Kraft Heinz. And then he went T51, T16, T43. So he's not coming in. I find it really hard to base – does form mean anything right now? Because we're kind of resetting the season, but the season ended legit 10 days ago. So I'm finding it difficult to really mix in how I should kind of, and especially like when you look at like Ryan Moore and some of the top guys, Cantlay, their stats comparatively are up against the best fields going in the FedEx Cup playoffs,
Right.
where some guys haven't played in like 5 weeks and, they're accumulating stats against the Wyndham and the Canadian Open and the John Deere Classic. Like those are their last 12 rounds. So are you better off looking at sort of a longer term view of a lot of these guys? Like look at the past 100 rounds, past 75 rounds to give you a better sense of how these guys actually play?
Yeah. So weekly I put out a rolling stat model, and so it does that. So I take a weighted average of the last 4, last 8, last 12, last 24, last 50, last 100. I scrape the data from Fantasy National and then build my own little deal and this is a week that I will go to that and go, okay, for instance, we'll get to him later, but JJ Spawn, he ranks 2nd in my stat model over this rolling deal. So some of those weaker field tournaments that he plays in and performed well is shining through there. Obviously, number 1's Neiman. So that's another deal to me to go, okay, I really like Neiman. Neiman, Moore, Griot are all in the top 4. You got a Joel Dahman, 7,100. He's 5th there, and we know, Joel was on my first 6-figure team, so I have a little loyalty to him. And but he performed in these type of tournaments, right? That John Deere-esque types part of the season that I go, okay, I don't really care what his form is right now because it's such a small sample size, and a lot of times these guys, weren't playing in these last 4 or 5 weeks. So they really, most of these guys have had a nice little break to recharge the batteries. And I mean, this week there's going to be some shots you just have to take and say, all right, I really liked how he played here. This sets up similarly. Hopefully his game's on where it was and his putting's good and go with them. It's more of a, throw a dart type on a few than an exact science this week. And definitely wouldn't be blowing my bankroll this week on this tournament. But I'd jump in it. There's some good contests. So I would definitely take some shots on guys. I don't think I'd spread myself in this week. I think I'm just going to narrow my pool down, pick the few guys I want to throw some darts on and just stick with that so I'm not spread all out and wind up having to have one lineup to another.
All right, so $8,000 level, it starts with Ollie Schneider-Jans, who actually has played well in some of these lower-end tournaments against weaker fields. That's how he sort of built his credibility back up. But he's $8,900. Then we're looking at, right below him, Luke List. Obviously I'm in on Luke List because everyone should be every week. Kevin Tway, Chris Kirk, Bud Colley is back from injury. Sang-Moon Bae, who's won at this tournament before, won 2 weeks ago on the web. He's $8,400. Harold Varner, Peter Uihlein, Russell Henley, Russell Knox. That's your $8,000 level. List is by far my favorite play in here. After him, I'm giving a hard consideration to Kevin Tway, Sang-Moon Bae, and Harold Varner III. Do you have a preference of those 3 guys?
Probably HV3. I love HV3 right there in that. Last night I pulled just a chunk of a 6-7 week stretch, and you saw a lot of, if you remember back in the summer, I know it was a long time ago for us, but the HV3, the Burgoons, the Dog, I mean, they all kind of played in that same era, and they all were up on the leaderboards a lot. And so he's 8,300. He's 16 on model. Out of those, I would lean to HV3 for sure. I'm actually way just is horrible in my stat model, and I think it has to do with him hitting fairways and stuff mainly. It doesn't look like he's strong in that realm, so I'm going to pass on Tway, but I like the other 2.
Is there anyone else in this $8,000 range you think that is a play? Like, would you go back to Bud Colley, knowing he hasn't played in ages, but has played this tournament quite well in the past, and talent-wise, I mean, coming into this spot last year, everyone's like, Bud Colley breakout season, let's do this, and then all of a sudden he gets hurt and he's no good.
My guy out of this range is Chris Kirk. I like him a lot. Solid in my stat model. He made it all the way to the BMW, progressed all the way 11th at the Wyndham, as you said, was the last full field. So that's a pretty strong showing for me. The Wyndham's a good field. He's played. This will be his 4th straight year here. He's made the cut every time. Has a T8 and a T30, so I really like Chris Kirk at 8,600.
Yeah, Chris Kirk as well over the past 50 rounds, 6th and approached 3rd in par 4s gained against this field, so he does rate out really well for me too. So maybe I'll go with Bae is really the interesting one to me because I have a hard time grasping where his game's at because he was just a disaster coming off military service all last year, but he's won this tournament before. He just won on the web.com tour, but he's even when he's playing well, he's a fairly inconsistent player. Do you think you can turn to him?
I probably won't this week, but I think you certainly could look at it because of the potential. It's a potential type week, right? So if he shows up and kind of maybe has taken a deep breath now that he's kind of back in his rotation and what he's doing, that he comes out firing like we think he can, and kind of right there with Bud Colley, right? Or I see them similar, they're priced similar, and I'd probably take one or the other, but not both, and say which one can come out. And I would lean Colley right now. Obviously, his statistical model goes back to the pre-injury. But he rates out well there for me. And he also, like you said, he's played this 3 years in a row. He played it back in 2014 as well, but he T7 last year. So if this is a tournament for him to kind of get back on it, I don't know if I'd take a chance on him at $8,500 in this field. I think I can go down a lot and get some guys I trust more, but that would be the guy out of those 2.
So for me, in the $7,000 range, the very first name at $7,900 is probably my favorite play from at least the $75,000 to $8,000 range. And it's J.B. Holmes, the guy that I talked about earlier that despite being a gigantic bomber, tends to play short par 4s incredibly well rather than the long par 4s. It's sort of the opposite of Griot. Griot loves playing long par 4s despite the fact that he's not a super long hitter. It's really strange. So I like J.B. Holmes to really take advantage of the spot. I think he's underpriced for his skill set. And when it comes to POA putting, like it's the only surface he can actually putt on. So I like that price at $7,900.
Yeah, he's up there in my model. My instinct will be that he's going to be chalky, right? He's a name that most guys will be familiar with, and they go $7,900 and jump on him. I'm not the biggest ownership fade go guy because I build so little lineups, but there are weeks throughout the year where I really look at ownership, and this will be one because I think there's so much unknown and so much potential chalk that if JB Holmes comes in at 22%, I'm like, I'll pass this week and just hope he doesn't go off. My top one right there, and I think I mentioned him a couple times, is Reeve. I like him a lot. He's third in my model overall. He's second in my stat. He's played this course at least the last 5 years, so this will be his sixth straight. So he obviously, I would assume, loves it. Has finished, top 50 all times. The last three years, he's finished top 22 or better. So 7,600, I will be heavy on Reeve and pairing him up with Neiman and Grillo to start many of my lineups.
Do you worry that, the Neiman is sort of the outlier in terms of skill set with those guys, but Reeve's a good ball striker, as is someone like Ryan Moore, as is Grillo, but they're all shorter hitters. That doesn't concern you at all with so many par fives?
No, just because of I love where he ranks in the approach and proximity. So probably you're banking a little bit that he can gain on some of the par fours and outweigh the field, but he's been able to compete in fields where the long par fives are there, and maybe take the Zach Johnson approach, put it tight in 3 and have a birdie putt, right? They're not going to be going for it by any means. But I would lean right below him and go to a guy who I think, can kind of bomb a little bit, Bronson Burgoon, who showed some flash this year at 7,500. I don't mind playing him as well. Played all the way to the Dell. So it's a huge year for him. I don't think very many knew him coming out of last year. So I think he's a guy, like you mentioned, Abraham earlier. I could see a Burgoon showing up here and kind of getting his win as he competed a lot in 2017-18 season.
So the other guys that are in there, Streelman's in there, and like Duffner, Lovemark, Landry, Fratelli, Cameron Davis, the Aussie who played well through the web.com and has played really well over in Australia during the swing season last year. That's kind of where he made his mark. Any interest in those guys? Because I think for me, Fratelli would be the one just based on his potential and his skill set of just kind of bomb and gouge. I think could play really well here.
Yeah, I like Landry, 7,700 as kind of an outlier. Again, has at least played he made it all the way to the BMW. So, the rust may not show as much, showed some definite potential throughout the year and can win a tournament, right? And so I like him, and probably a surprise because I'm interested to see where he goes this year. He kind of flashed some sparks, some old school sparks for me, and I've kind of penciled him in. He's not real high on my rankings, but he's played this course a lot. He's a veteran, and I think he's focused a little bit, and maybe Hunter Mahan, and maybe some Hunter Mahan week this week at 7,500. Obviously, he's probably the most veteran in this field, and I think he kind of just showed enough last year that maybe this is the spot to take him in. I don't know. Would you like some Mahan or just a hard pass?
Yeah, I know Mahan's a guy that I enjoy. He came second. He lost to Sangmoon Bay. He was a part of that big cluster before Bay pulled away at the web.com a few weeks ago. Yeah, he's made the cut in 3 of 4 appearances at this course and some decent upside. He's the sort of player that I want at this course, like not necessarily Hunter Mahan, but the prototype for what Hunter Mahan used to be really good at. He's an excellent ball striker, and he fires at every pin. Like, that's sort of what you're looking for in a birdie fest. So I can dig Hunter Mahan here at $7,500. Sam Ryder at $7,500 I think is a very similar type of player as well, and doesn't have the name recognition of a Hunter Mahan.
100% who I was about to say next I would take a Ryder if Mahan's looking like he's not going to be chalk, but if I can gain some leverage, I definitely like Ryder here, and I put him in the same class. And he's fighting, to make his name and make money. Mahan's got plenty of money at this point. Not that matters for all things, but out of those guys, I would drop down just a little bit and kind of go back. I'm a big this guy won me some money this year, and Scott Piercy is top 5 in my model overall, and at 7,300, he's number 1 in approach, number 2 in ball striking in the realm that I looked at. And so, he loves this course. He's T3, T17. So I would drop past all these and go straight to him on the chart next.
Yeah, so I like Piercy as well. Laird, who's at the exact same price, has played this course just tremendously over the years, and we've seen repeat winners. The same guys consistently do well, so maybe course history at this course for whatever reason is something to look into. I'm not sure, but like Joel Dahmen's there. I love Joel Dahmen, just like you do. Lucas Glover, who played well on the web, earned his card back. He's in here. He's sort of the T to green Brendan. He's sort of like cheap Brendan Steele this week. I think that Lucas Glover could have a decent showing here. And if everyone else, like, I'm going to fade Sung J Im. He's not a bomber. He's a shorter hitter. I think that more things need to go right for him than anything else, than a lot of different guys in this range. So I think those are the plays. Like, people will be on Mackenzie Hughes. People will be on Sam Burns. I get it, but I don't know. Maybe trade. What's that?
There's two guys here. There's two guys. Well, I'm fading him in DraftKings, so I'm going to bet Sung J because if he, I think he's. I hadn't looked. He's high odds, right? Over 100, maybe two. I don't know what he is, but I'd rather bet him T5 or something. If he does that, I get my money there with him and just fade him on DraftKings. But two guys here that are kind of marked. I'm marking for maybe a great, not great, but an improved 18-19 season. And one of them I can't stand. He's cost me so much money to pass. Is Chesson Hadley and Hudson Swafford. They're both popping in my model high. What do you see on those two?
I don't know, man. I get this is where Chesson kind of rolled it through last year. And
correct.
This is when he started to get hot. And I think ideally, in terms of like prototypical skill set, he is the guy that you want. He's a great ball striker. And this is the right price for him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the price where I like to play Chesson Hadley. I don't enjoy playing him when he's $9,000. So maybe this is a time to get back in on him. Watney's right at his price. I like him a little bit more than that. I like him more than Lahiri. People will be on Patrick Rogers. I like him more than Patrick Rogers. I guess like Haggy is really the only other guy down there just because he scores so well on par fives that you just might roll the dice on him.
Yeah, yes, and I'll probably bite off some Hadley. At least I don't think he's gonna be crazy owned. So if I build 10 lineups and have him in two, I'm definitely over the field. But one, I'm probably at least even or even a better. And he is a great ball striker. He rates out number one in my approach model. So I would, like you said, if he's 8,600 here, it's a hard pass for me. But the number's right, and I think the value's there for him to come back and make some, give you your value back at 7,200.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a decision on him later in the week. I'm not sure yet because I might want to play. I don't know, like Grayson's back. Can we get in on some Grayson?
Yeah, that's a true definition of a dart. I mean, he's talented. We know that he could show up and win this thing by 3, or he could trunk slam and be gone by midday Friday easily. He rates out okay in my model. T9 here last year. I definitely would have nowhere. I wouldn't call anybody off of Grayson, but I'll pass this week and let him prove to me that he's focused.
Do you have any thoughts on Curtis Luck, the Aussie, at $7,200? Like, I just remember him from all of the majors when he was an amateur, and he was really good. He kind of looked like the new wave Adam Scott coming out of Australia, and then he just kind of went away for a little while. He played on the web.com tour. He earned his card. I just think pedigree-wise, when we kind of look at a lot of these web players that have been promoted, Im is someone that has just played really well. Like Kramer Hickok is someone that has a bit of a pedigree, but I think that Luck might actually have the best pedigree of all of these guys.
No, he's on my short list of I got about 5 to 7 guys that I've picked out this week to kind of just do some deep dive in tonight and into tomorrow and see, looking at where they play, the type of courses, where they've, because I don't have time to go through all 25 of the graduates and deep dive and figure out which one. So I just go by guys that I've made notes on through the year, and he's definitely one to go, okay, is this a spot where I take a, 1 out of 10? He's not going to be more than 2%, maybe. No, very few, except for, in-depth guys will even know of him. And so he's definitely worth a shot here.
Yeah, I'm going to roll out some Curtis Luck here. T6, T5, miscut, T24, T8 in his final 5 web events. Like I mentioned, the pedigree. I want to say he was the number 1 amateur in the world at one point, but that could be completely wrong. He was getting into all these tournaments. He was sort of like... Yeah. He was sort of like Neiman before Neiman, except when he finally started playing on tour, he wasn't very good. He had to go back to the minors, figure out his game a little bit. He didn't just immediately take off like Neiman did, but he's someone that maybe has recouped his game a little bit, developed some consistency, and still has that winning upside that we've seen. And his price point plus his ownership, I think that he's a nice stab in the dark here. When we drop below $7,000, unless there's another $7,000 guy you want to hit on.
No, I was just going to say that with him, and all these guys I think a lot of guys overlook the web and say, well, it's the web. And the web today is a lot different than, back 15 years ago. And it's a competitive, there are so many guys that are not only coming out of it, but competing as they come out that I do look at how they perform there. So you got a guy like that that's top 10, you know, especially rolling at the end of the season. I'm going to say, well, I mean, not that he's on top 10 on the PGA, but especially the Safeway Open where it's a glorified web. I mean, just the next step up with some of the talent. You know, I look at that. I think that's valuable, and some guys may just not even care what the web results were, but I think it's important.
Danny Willett's at $7,000. He's in this field.
Jeff will be all over him. That's all he'll see is Danny Willett. You know, he showed some shine last year, right? I mean, he got up. I don't know how high he got up, but he was battling, you know, top of leaderboards for a while, and then kind of fell right back off. So I definitely will be a hard pass on Willett, but you know, the guys that are loyal to him from the win that was, definitely I could see him going back there.
Is there? But I mean, in some of these fields and some of the biggest successes that I've had in recent years, and even Danny Willett kind of fell into this when he ended up winning the Masters, that you just take these guys that are supremely talented when they're undervalued. Now, obviously they're undervalued because they're coming in with really bad form, and Willett's shown flashes over in Europe, like you mentioned. He was actually competitive at the British Open this year. He was like, here we go, maybe Danny Willett's back a little bit. Then he goes out and misses 2 cuts and then doesn't compete at like the Portugal Masters. So it's really tough with him because statistically he's not going to rate out well, because the only events that he plays in America, like if you look at his past 24 rounds, you see that he's an absolute disaster. But those 24 rounds actually collect back to like 2 years ago WGC, like right, immediately post Masters, because he plays so rarely on the PGA Tour that maybe this is him trying to grind, get his tour card back. He sort of has a free roll year. Because of the Masters win, he still gets exemptions into everything. That I don't know. He might be, if his game is gonna kind of swing back to where it was, then is he a guy that you can just play for a while and he might let you down, but you still bank that he has that talent, that he can get back to, even if he can get back to 80% of what he used to be, he's one of the best players in this field.
No, I agree. In this field and kind of the guys under him, I don't know if I'll go back to it, but I mean, you talk to some of the best in pro golfers, especially, they'll tell you that elite talent can shine out on any given week. You can throw the stats out, you can throw the course history and all that. And as you said, in this field, you know, at his best, he definitely is up there. Me personally, I like a lot of the high sixes this week, and so I would drop to, you know, a Harkins, a JJ Spawn or a Tyler Duncan over him. Tyler, I'm big on, loved him, played him a lot last year. And so I would drop down, but I can see the argument for potential and what he's shown and what's his focus and mentality going into the season, and wanting to play this tournament. You know, maybe he's geared up and ready because he's not played it before. So obviously there's a reason for him to kind of get on the grind and maybe make a run. So
let's talk about these sub $7,000 guys. You hit on the name that I like the most. It's Tyler Duncan. It's a ball striker's paradise. He's an excellent ball striker. Can't putt a lick, but maybe he has a lucky week. He did finish inside the top 10 at this course last year. So I'm in. And like even with Spawn, I'm in on Spawn with you as well. Yeah, this is where I first caught Tyler Duncan. You know what? I use the term tuition. I paid a lot of tuition last fall, and watching these guys and didn't do well in the fall swing for DraftKings. But I played it because it also let me look at contests and see how they performed, and then also required me to put another TV on the golf. So I watched a lot, and I really liked him. And he obviously finished T5 here, and that to me paid dividends later in the year when he started kind of getting his game even better. And he still was undervalued, in my opinion, and played a lot of them, especially during the hot streak in the middle of the summer. And so I'm all over Tyler Duncan. Like I said, I like this. I mean, being on POA maybe offsets some of that. And if he can just put it close, he can, you know, compete. But at 6,800, he doesn't have to like win, right? I mean, he just, you know, make the cut and then try to make a run and get a one day of a hot putter, and he well returns the value. And I think Spawn is not like Willett. Obviously, Willett's won the Masters. Spawn's not even close, but on the talent-wise, I mean, if Spawn gets it going, and we know he's great at approach and can throw darts in there. And so if he can get it going out here, I think he's way underpriced, probably the most underpriced guy in the tournament. And so, I mean, this is a realm where I talked about earlier, if you want to try to go really up top on a Neiman, Griot, and someone else, you can drop down to Spawn, Duncan, Corey Connors. You know, he had a great year. He's high in my model. Get some of those guys in there, 2 of them, and then you kind of balance out in the middle. So I definitely see a lot of play in the sub-7 this week for people. Well, at 6,600, Fabian Gomez comes in. 2 really solid starts to get his tour card back on the web.com tour. He's made 3 of 3 cuts at this event, too, that I think if you're just looking for someone to get through to the weekend, Fabian Gomez is a pretty decent bet for that.
Definitely. He's definitely on my short list. James Hahn is another one at 6,600 that I kind of hold your nose and go in with him sometimes. But if he shows up at 6,600, he will well return that value. And so, I mean, that's what we talked about earlier was you can't play them all. And so you kind of start, I mean, and I'm guilty of this at times. You see Maverick McNeely and, well, you got a Wes Bryan down there, and talent-wise, he's worked a lot. You've seen his videos on everything he's working with his driver. So as he says he's feeling as confident with his driver as he ever has. You get a confident Wesley Bryan at 6,500 with the driver. The rest of his game's pretty all right, and he can putt. And so, but I think you got to just nail down the one thing I would tell people not get goo-goo eyes and just nail down your player pool. And you're just going to have to take some that you can't take them all, or you'll wind up needing one lineup to hit out of 20 instead of having a tighter core this week. And all those guys are great. So you can make arguments against and for, and it's just going to be tough for some guys to nail those guys down. But I like Gomez, but I like Hahn and Bryan as potential plays this week.
See, I really hate Bryan here. I need him to show it to me that he can hit a driver, because he can't.
Right. I mean, it would be a total dart going off of Twitter videos of him showing that – he's been hitting these buttercuts, and he looks great on it. But so it's a dart play, a 1 out of 10 lineups. If you think, okay, if he's actually is hitting confident with the driver, there's no better place to play him than at the $6,500 Safeway Open. But I can see the argument of, because if you can't hit a driver here, he's done, right? He's not even going to get close to making the cut because he'll be in trouble all day. So it's a dart for sure if you go that route.
Yeah, like just looking at the upcoming events for Wes Bryan, like spots where he could potentially pop at. I think RSM is probably his best bet for these swing season events where shorter hitters really come into play. It really correlates with the Heritage, a place where he's won before. It correlates with the John Deere, another place where you don't need to be the best driver of the ball, that you can get away with iron, short game, and putting. That I think I might just, if he's showing a little bit of consistency off the tee, like he was at some points last year, he was losing double-digit strokes off the tee, which is basically impossible.
No, I agree 100%. You may be talking me off of him, but he's definitely worth. I agree. There are, and that's a good point. What you may do, and kind of thinking of a one and done mentality is go, okay, I like a lot of these guys, but over this fall swing, what courses could I try them at as a low value, and save them for that, and just go with what you think's better this week. So that's a great.
In my final thing, in my longer term, 50 to 100 round statistical compilation, some of the names that it spit out, Tom Hoagie was one of them. Sean O'Hare was one of them. Troy Merritt was actually quite high. After he won, he was dealing with that heart problem, and then he went miscut through the playoffs. So I don't know how great a form that he's in. And then Johnny question marks. He would be the next one down on that list. You don't mind him. Vaughn Taylor is actually an alternate as well. Someone who's just a very good ball striker, but in really awful form.
No, yeah. Question marks. Johnny question marks is one I like. 6,600 this week. I definitely like him, and I agree with you. So the bad part is if you look at the regression of those rounds and the longer rounds, he has done well. So that's something I am factoring this week. The last 4, 8, 12, he was horrible. But again, like you're talking, we're trying to compare him to fields that are equal to this. And that's going a step above and beyond that guys like you and I will do. And hopefully that's why people follow us. But he's one that I've penciled to go, all right, this is a week. If there's ever a week for him, 6,600, I think he makes the cut and can definitely top 20 this. And that'll be a great play. Another guy that kind of popped up for me, I don't know, I don't think you said him yet, is Ben Crane. Especially when I go back, I can't stand watching him. At the Fort Worth Invitational, we watched him for a little while, and I wanted to blow my brains out. But on when it comes up to this, he's a guy that's on my short list that may go way unnoticed and has the talent to kind of compete in this field.
Well, last guy that we'll talk about, he's $6,800. You brought up his name a little bit earlier, and he's a part of Team Pat Mayo. When I finally get enough money that it doesn't matter anymore how RBC sponsors players, I'm just going to start sponsoring my favorite players. And Carlos Ortiz would be on that list. That he just goes after pins. He makes a ton of birdies. He can also shoot 85. He's right in my wheelhouse of player that I love watching, I love getting behind, and he always breaks my heart. Do you have any interest in Carlos Ortiz?
Yeah, no, I do. I think he's on the short list to potentially win a tournament this year on the tour. I know Ruby, part of Gup's Corner, is high on him again this year as well. You guys seem to like some of the same guys, JJ Spawn, all that kind of stuff. I used to like Spawn until Ruby got really on him, but just joking. But I like Ortiz. He's a guy I have on that list this year that not a big win, but this fall swing and then some of those John Deere Classic type events going into next year, I'd like him. So I don't have any issues with playing him this week. And he's not going to be on anybody's radar. There's no, virtually no stats, stuff like that. So it's a, good contrarian play for sure.
Yeah, he has made 12 consecutive cuts on the web.com tour, which is nice. No super duper high finishes. I think he had like a T2, a T8, and the most of them are like T34 or T whatever. But if he comes T34 this week, it's not bad for his price point if you can get him through all 4 days. Finally, let's talk about favorite plays from each range. We take it a high guy, a mid guy, and a low guy. For me, I'm going with Neiman, then Luke List, then JB Holmes, and then Tyler Duncan. Those would be my 4. What about you?
Agree on Neiman. I have plenty of Neiman. I like Chris Kirk. HV3 as well. Reevy down in the 7s will be my top play. And then James Hahn and JJ Spawn down low.
All right. Brennan Guptill, Gup's Corner, The Gup. Tell everyone when the chat is and where they can find it, and your NFL podcast and all the content, the great content you guys have over at gupscorner.com.
Yeah, everything's on gupscorner.com. Going through a remodel on the website right now, so come check it out. Doing some enhancements there. All the links to the podcast are on there. You can find me at I am the Gup on Twitter. Or you can find the whole team at Gup's Corner. All of our posts are there. Wednesday nights we record our football pod, The Coin Flip, comes out Thursdays. We have a golf pod as well called The Smash Factor. It'll release late this morning. We record those on Monday nights. Come check us out. Great contest. So we at GW Buffalo 7 is our contest guru. Host a lot. I know we've had a ton of emails breaking out about one and done and all that. We don't do anything in the fall swing. Kind of take a breath because we have so much football going on. But be sure to join us as we have huge things coming in 2019. And all the contests will be back. One and done for golf. DraftKings, which was a huge hit. The DraftKings season-long golf as well. And some new stuff headed this way. So come check us out and give us some support, and appreciate you having us on, Pat, as always.
Of course. You can follow me on Twitter at ThePME, same as Instagram, same as Facebook. You can find my DK cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com and hit the description for everything. And if you want to enter the contest for $20 DK, smash the like button, which you should be doing anyway. Who doesn't love this? It's golf. Leave your DK handle in the comments section and give me your 2 favorite plays above $8,500, the 2 guys that you're going to start your team with. We're back into the waters, dipping the toes back into the waters of golf. I hope you'd enjoyed it. That was the Safeway Open. Let's go win some money and sign up and become a member of FantasyNational.com today. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!